I think it's fair to say we've saved the best for last. I'm perhaps a little biased on that front, but we're going to be talking about transportation this afternoon, which is something that I'm personally passionate about. It's something I've been reporting on for at least a decade of my career at Marketplace, but also for the BBC and for Wired magazine. It's something that I've seen a tremendous amount of progress in, just in that period that I've been working on it. But I think that we're about to see an incredible amount of progress in the future. We're going to hear about some of that this afternoon, where things are going to start moving really fast with transportation. It's perhaps something that most of us don't consider unless we're complaining about it, but hopefully there are some good options coming. And you don't have to take my word for it. I actually just picked this up. The reason I'm carrying a newspaper is because this is today's The National, and it has an editorial in here saying, "You don't want to own a car anymore, trust me." And then at the bottom, "Future generations will consider the idea of personal vehicles as old-fashioned and unnecessary." So we're going to get to some of that today and talk about some of the options. But I wanted to just start with a show of hands. This is kind of always an interesting experiment. How many people in this room have been in a driverless car? How many people have ridden in an autonomous vehicle? We've got Nick Thompson over there, but he's cheating because he's from Wired magazine. But actually, a fairly good selection of people in this room have. And how many of you have been on a supersonic plane? How many have flown above the speed of sound? One gentleman here, 2, 3. So again, that's actually pretty good. I do this survey a lot when I'm talking to people. I've done this in Silicon Valley. I've done this in Washington, D.C. And the numbers are always very low, which could be a problem because these things are coming. Driverless cars are coming. Supersonic flight could be coming back, as we'll hear today. And yet, a lot of us haven't really experienced them. We're not really in a position to be making informed decisions about what they might mean. So that's what we want to get to. I'm going to just run through really quickly, set up some of the issues, and then we'll move on to the speakers, because they're much more interesting to me than me. This is a quick graph just showing you the number of hours that drivers or passengers lose in traffic around the world. Now, I crunched the numbers here to put Abu Dhabi on. Abu Dhabi actually ranks 200th on the world stage. My home, Los Angeles, ranks 76th. So these cities that are in the top 10, you can imagine how bad these places must be to live. Just, feel for the people of Bogota and the number of hours that they lose in traffic. And it's not just time, it's also people and lives. 1.3 million people globally die in traffic accidents every year. 1.3 million people. It's a huge number. So what do we do about that? Well, one solution is driverless cars. This is me at Stanford University with my brain wired up, really to prove how bad a driver I am. And I'd like to think that it's not just me. We as humans are bad drivers. We're bad at multitasking. We can't really handle lots of things at once, and there's plenty these days to distract us. We're always carrying around a screen of some sort. So driverless cars have the potential to be safer, but how safe do we want them to be before we fully trust them? So if humans are killing 1.3 million people, do driverless cars have to be 10 times safer than that, or 100 times safer than that? Do they have to be infallible? Is that possible? There is growing public interest in this. We saw that in the National. This is Google searches over the past few years of people looking for information about driverless cars. You can see it tends to spike when there's bad news. We've got the autonomous Uber crash in Arizona, Google's driverless car involved in third accident. I see part of my job is trying to fill in the gaps in those spikes and give people the kind of the contextual information to make decisions about whether we want these things in our societies. These are some other solutions that we're going to hear about today. I'm not going to talk about these very much right now because we are going to talk about them in detail as the afternoon goes on. But if you think about the other types of transport, trains, well, trains have been around for, over a century? Planes we've had for a long time. They tend to be the same sort of design that we're very familiar with. Trains run on rails, planes are tubes with, they're metal tubes with wings. There are some people who are coming up with some real innovations in these types of transport. We're going to talk about Hyperloop, and we're going to talk about supersonic flight. And this is just something that I'm personally getting quite excited about as well. People always ask me, when are we going to get a flying car? This is actually a video that Uber put out. Uber, through their Elevate program, is getting very excited about the future of cars, perhaps flying cars, perhaps because they see them as disruptive for their business model. But this is them showing what a journey in Los Angeles could look like. They want to offer a service like this in Los Angeles and in Dallas in the US, where flying cars, although they hate that term, electric vertical takeoff or landing vehicles will leave from the top of a tall building somewhere near you and take you to the top of a tall building somewhere near your destination, and cut out all that traffic in between. And it's the advances in technology that we're going to need to make things like this a possibility, they say in the next few years, that we're going to start talking about this afternoon. And then we do stay put for the end of the day, because actually we have a special treat where we're going to talk about travel, but without leaving our homes. It's really how far we can travel in our minds, with a journey that takes us enormously far through the universe, through black holes. We're going to be talking to, or hearing from, the director, Anthony Geffen, and Lucy Hawking as well, Stephen Hawking's daughter. They're going to be telling us about their latest project later on this afternoon.